MSW Media. Hey everybody, it's AG and welcome to Refried Beans, where we play an episode of the Daily Beans podcast from the same week, either 1, 2, or 3 years ago, so we can see how far we've come. So please enjoy this episode from days gone by and note the date in the intro.
Refried beans. I like refried beans. That's why I want to try fried beans, because maybe they're just as good and we're wasting time.
We're swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Today, Donald Trump lies about the federal response to the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene while tapping local resources for a political visit to Valdosta, Georgia. CBS News says it will not be responsible to fact-check the candidates in tonight's vice presidential debate. The DNC and Georgia Dems have sued the Georgia State Election Board again for their hand count rule on the eve of the bench trial for their other potential election violations, which is set to begin today. Fulton County Judge McBurney has overturned Georgia's 6-week abortion ban. The Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says the U.S. economy is in solid shape as he plans to cut interest rates again. And Kamala Harris's economic plan is more popular than Trump's. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
Hey, my friend. Happy Tuesday. Happy October, Rabbit. How are you?
Oh, my goodness. I can't believe it's October 1st, but I am good. I'm good. It's always good to see you. But yeah, this year, it feels like it's gone by faster than most.
I'm still writing 1996 on my checks. So that's where I'm at with time. But yeah, October 1st. Now, as we record this, as we all know, time travel, we record this on September 30th, but October 1st is setting itself up to be one of the busiest and most consequential news days of the cycle. And we're going to talk about all of the things that are going to happen, including stuff in Jack Smith's case. The debate, obviously, is tonight, October 1st, between Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and whatever J.D. Vance is. I think he's a senator in Ohio. He shouldn't be. But that's going to be interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that. But it is just a really heavy news week. And I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're here. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille.
I did. I was going to call J.D. Vance Maybelline eyeliner model, J.D. Vance.
Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's fascism. Mm-hmm. Who knows? All right. So as I said, we have a lot of news to get to for Monday. And a lot of stuff to talk about that's going to happen today, but we have to do some quick hits.
And to make a long story short, too late.
All right, everyone, it is debate night in America, though CBS News is now saying it will not fact-check the candidates. Why would you do that? I know, boo hiss. Well, on Friday, CBS said the onus will be on Vance and Walz to point out misstatements by the other, and that, quote, the moderators will facilitate those opportunities during rebuttal time. I guess they're going to say, if you think he's full of shit, do you want to respond?
Right. Is that a lie or no?
Yeah. All right. The network said its own misinformation unit, CBS News confirmed, will provide real-time fact-checking during the debate on its live blog and on social media and on the air during post-debate analysis, which seems like the wrong time.
You know, the super popular CBS live blog that everybody follows.
I think it feels like they're just trying to drive traffic to their social media because it's not doing well. They're like, we're not going to call out lies on air, but we'll do it on Facebook Live.
Yeah, like what? Oh, man. All right. Today, October 1st, Jack Smith's reply to Trump's weird discovery motion in the D.C. case is due. And then by noon today, Eastern Time, Trump's responses to Jack Smith's proposed redactions for the first half of Jack Smith's 180-page immunity brief are due. And the fact that they're due at noon leads me to believe we could have the public version by the end of today. She might rule on that. And, you know, don't underestimate Jack Smith's reply to Trump's weird discovery motion, too, because we aren't only going over immunity here. Judge Chutkan also front-loaded this with discovery and Trump's motion to compel discovery and his complaints about the size of the prosecution team. I don't know why he has size problems all the time.
All the time.
It's just too big for him, I guess. But so all of that's going to come today, and she's doing it concurrently, right? She's like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We don't have to do the immunity thing and then figure out the discovery stuff, and we don't have to do the discovery stuff first and then figure out the immunity thing. So a bunch of stuff is due today. We're going to go over all of it briefly here on the Beans tomorrow, and then of course in detail on the Jack podcast.
All right. And for those of you that are like, what's everyone doing to fight the bullshit in Georgia? Well, this is what they're doing. The bench trial for the Georgia State Election Board starts today. And it's going to be live on Judge McBurney's YouTube channel. Apparently, he needs to send some traffic there, too. This bench trial is about previous rules set by the board that allow them undefined powers to investigate election irregularities in an attempt to delay certification. Additionally, the DNC and Georgia Dems, they announced Monday they've sued the state election board over new rule requiring hand counting of ballots. So a lot of these cases that are going down right now, they are winning. Mark Elias likes to, whether it's his case or not, but Mark Elias likes to announce these on his Twitter feed. So make sure you're following because he's really, really trying to save the integrity of this election single-handedly with his team.
Yes. And we're going to cover that bench trial on next week's Cleanup on L45, not tomorrow's, because of the time travel situation on next week's. But also, seriously, follow Anna Bauer on Twitter. I'm sure she's going to be talking about it. And of course, you can also log into Judge McBurney's YouTube feed because the courts down in Georgia, they not televise, but, they live stream these proceedings. As you'll remember when we watched the Fulton County Judge McAfee case about the disqualification of Fonnie Willis and all that other stuff. It's all live streamed, so you can watch it there. All right, we have a lot more news to get to. Let's hit the hot notes.
Hot notes.
All right, first up from Ebony Davis at CNN, Vice President Kamala Harris is ending her West Coast campaign swing early and her travel from Las Vegas to Washington, D.C. Instead, she's going to do that on Monday morning to be briefed on ongoing impacts of Hurricane Helene at the FEMA headquarters. That's according to the White House. The vice president is expected to be briefed on the federal actions taken to support emergency responses and recovery. It comes as the Southeast grapples with widespread devastation after Helene made landfall last Thursday as the strongest hurricane on record to slam into Florida's Big Bend region. At least 100 people have been killed. And by the way, power's been knocked out for like millions of people. A lot of folks don't have water or food. It's devastating. While the hurricane made landfall in Florida, it has been devastating to western North Carolina with flooding there, in eastern Tennessee. That's been the focus of rescue efforts in recent days. The Appalachian Mountain areas of both states have been inundated with unprecedented rainfall that has left thousands cut off and isolated, leaving first responders with the difficult task of getting to those who need help. North Carolina is a key state for Harris and Democrats in the fall as the vice president attempts to flip that state that has gone for Republicans in each presidential election since Obama won it in 2008. Her opponent, Donald Trump, has already attacked her and President Joe Biden for continuing on with their weekend plans as the devastation in the state became clear. And of course, this has all turned out to be lies. The former president also continued on with his regularly scheduled campaign rallies. So he is continuing his rallies despite him criticizing them, even though they stopped theirs. Or hers, I should say, since Biden isn't doing any campaign rallies. Now, Harris, the Democratic nominee for president, was previously scheduled to make 2 campaign stops in Nevada on Monday before diverting her plans. Quote, "We stand with these communities for as long as it takes to make sure that they're able to recover and rebuild." That's what she said during a rally in Las Vegas. And on Sunday, Harris was briefed by FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell while traveling on Air Force Two from California to Nevada. She also spoke with North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, and reassured them that the Biden administration will stand with the impacted communities throughout their recovery. Harris intends to visit impacted communities as soon as possible without disrupting emergency response operations.
That part is so important.
Because Trump visited Valdosta, Georgia Monday, fucking all their shit up and claiming that Governor Kemp has been having a hard time getting a hold of President Biden. But that's also a lie. Kemp spoke to Biden yesterday and thanked him for his help. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's visit dragged multiple first responders away from helping people in the area so that he could be protected and have his photo op. So he lied about him talking to Biden and DeSantis talking to Biden and Harris. He criticized Harris and Biden for campaigning while he has not canceled any campaign events, and Harris has. And now, he's saying, he's sucking up all these very, very vital resources by visiting the region, while Harris and Biden are in D.C. Sending all the help that they can. So that's where we are. World Central Kitchen, by the way, is also providing free meals to those in need. You can get that information on their website, as well as a QR code to volunteer to help feed those in need. So check that out at World Central Kitchen's website.
Thanks so much, Allison. This is from The Guardian. Kamala Harris's economic policies proved far more popular than Donald Trump's plans in a blind test of their proposals. I love that it's a blind test. 4 of the top 5 most popular proposals were from the Democratic candidate's campaign. That's according to a new Harris poll conducted exclusively for The Guardian. The poll showed strong optimism from Democrats about Harris's presidential candidacy, but once again highlighted pessimism around the U.S. economy from both sides of the aisle. Americans surveyed were given a list of 12 policy proposals, 6 from Harris's campaign and 6 from Trump's. The poll did not say whose campaign the proposals came from. The most popular proposal was a federal ban on the price gouging of food and groceries, a Democratic proposal that some leading economists have criticized. Nearly half, 44% of all those polled agreed that it would strengthen the economy. Harris's price gouging proposal is designed to help address the top economic issue of respondents. That's the cost of living. A majority of those polled, 66%, indicated that the cost of living was one of their biggest economic concerns right now. Other Harris proposals that voters liked included expanding the child tax credit, that was 33%, and selected tax breaks for new small businesses, another 33%. The only Trump plan to break the top 5 was his proposal to cut taxes on Social Security benefits. 42% of people wanted that. Now, Trump's policies are popular with his base, as we know. When asked about his proposal for the mass deportation of millions of migrants, 43% of Republicans said it would be good for the economic versus 24% of independents and 15% of Democrats who obviously know fucking better.
It would be devastating to the economy to deport millions of people.
Absolutely. In more good news for Harris, independent voters, a key group, as we know, in this election, seemed to favor Harris's policies over Trump's. 4 out of the 5 top policies selected by independents, they're from Harris's campaign. Since Joe Biden withdrew from the presidential race 2 months ago, it felt like 8 years ago, paving the way, and it's one of the shortest election cycles we've had from the Democratic nominee, paving the way for Harris to become the Democratic candidate. She has tried to craft her own economic platform. Harris instead has been promoting her, quote, opportunity economy. That focuses on rising costs rather than issues like infrastructure and manufacturing, which were key components of Bidenomics, as they call it. The shift in focus, it seems to be working. Harris's policies were particularly popular with younger Americans, an increasingly powerful voting bloc. Some 87% of millennials and Gen Z voters said that at least one of Harris's proposals would be good for the economy versus 79% of young voters who said the same for Trump. That's a good sign. Of the 4 generations polled, millennial voters seem to be the most on board with Harris's candidacy. Those were energized, of course, by her appointment after President Joe Biden withdrew. Now, the majority of millennials, 59%, said that Harris's policies are better than Biden's even, compared to just the 36% of boomers. Democratic voters as a whole seem to think Harris turned out to be the better candidate. When asked if their lives would be better if Harris or Biden won the election, 80% of Democratic voters, they went with Harris. Though Harris has received criticism for being, quote, light on policy, a majority of all voters in the poll suggested they understand her policies just fine. More than 60% of the voters said they understood Harris's policies on the economy, and I'm pretty sure that's in comparison to 0 from Trump.
Yeah, this light on policy thing, I mean, she's got a 91-page economic policy, just economics.
Yeah, it's such bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit. All right, next up from me at MuellerSheWrote.com. Today, a Fulton County judge struck down Georgia's 6-week abortion ban as unconstitutional, and it's full of incredible quotes, up to and including the invocation of The Handmaid's Tale. But before I dive into some of the content, let's review how we got to this point. The plaintiffs in the case are suing to block certain provisions of Georgia's Living Infants Fairness and Equality Act, also known as the LIFE Act, arguing that they're unconstitutional. In October of 2022, the court conducted a bench trial with, no jury, during which the parties presented evidence in support of their positions. Now, at the time, pending at the time of that bench trial, were two motions: a motion to dismiss filed by the state of Georgia and a motion for partial judgment on the pleadings filed by the plaintiffs. On 15 November 2022, the court entered an order granting in part the motion for partial judgment on the pleadings for the plaintiffs, finding that several challenged provisions of the Life Act were void because they were unconstitutional when passed. The state then promptly appealed, and the Supreme Court stayed this court's ruling while it considered the merits of the void. Then on October 24th, 2023, the Supreme Court issued its final opinion in which it reversed this court's ruling, abandoning decades of its own precedent, and remanded the case for a ruling on the merits of the plaintiff's constitutional claims. And that's what led to today's ruling. The Life Act consists of 16 sections, only 3 of which the plaintiffs challenge as infringing on their rights or their members' rights: Sections 4, 10, and 11. Section 4 of the Life Act amended Georgia law to criminalize abortions occurring after the embryo generates a detected human heartbeat, quote unquote, a development which both sides in this litigation agree typically occurs around 6 weeks after the mother's last menstrual period. Section 10 amended the law concerning a physician's obligations when performing abortions to require doctors to make, quote, a determination of the presence of a detectable human heartbeat of an unborn child, that's a quote, before performing any abortion, absent a medical emergency or a medically futile pregnancy. And finally, Section 11 amended the law to add a requirement that any physician who performs an abortion after detecting a fetal heartbeat must report to the Department of Public Health the exception to the ban imposed by Section 4 of the Act that applied to justify the otherwise illegal procedure. Now, here's how Judge McBurney frames the issue. Whether one couches it as liberty or privacy or even equal protection, this dispute is fundamentally about the extent of a woman's right to control what happens to and within her body. The baseline rule is clear. A legally competent person has absolute authority over her body and should brook no government interference in what she does and does not do in terms of health, hygiene, and the like. Now, there is a vaccine exception wherein the government can condition some receipt of benefits, such as public education or Medicare or Medicaid coverage, based on the administration of vaccines or other preventative medicine, or outright mandate the treatment through a valid exercise of state police power. It goes on to say, and the issue to be decided here, how to balance the rights of a not yet viable fetus against the rights of the only person in this great wide world who can, by choice or by legislative imposition, maintain that pregnancy until it's viable. And Judge McBurney writes, while the state's interest in protecting, quote, unborn life is compelling, until that life can be sustained by the state and not solely by the woman compelled by the act to do the state's work, the balance of rights favors the woman. Women are not some piece of collectively owned community property, the disposition of which is decided by majority vote. Forcing a woman to carry an unwanted, not yet viable fetus to term violates her constitutional rights to liberty and privacy, even taking into consideration whatever bundle of rights the not yet viable fetus may have. And here's where he invokes the Handmaid's Tale. For these women, the liberty of privacy means that they alone should choose whether they serve as human incubators for the 5 months leading up to viability. It is not for a legislator, a judge, or a commander from the Handmaid's Tale to tell these women what to do with their bodies during this period when the fetus cannot survive outside the womb any more so than society could or should force them to serve as a human tissue bank or give up a kidney for the benefit of another. Considering the compelling record of evidence about the physical, mental, and emotional impact of unwanted pregnancies on the women who are forced by law to carry them to term, as well as on their other living children, the court finds that until the pregnancy is viable, a woman's right to make decisions about her body and her health remains private and protected. When someone other than the pregnant woman is able to sustain the fetus, then and only then should those other voices have a say in the discussion about the decisions the pregnant woman makes concerning her body and what's growing within it. He then addresses mental health issues. He says, a law that saves a mother from a potentially fatal pregnancy when the risk is purely physical, but which fates her to death or serious injury or disability if the risk is mental or emotional, is patently unconstitutional and violative of the equal protection rights of pregnant women suffering from acute mental health issues. And he concludes, a review of our higher court's interpretations of liberty demonstrates that liberty in Georgia includes in its meaning, in its protections, and in its bundle of rights, the power of a woman to control her own body, to decide what happens to it and in it, and to reject state interference with her healthcare choices. Accordingly, Section 4 of the Life Act is declared unconstitutional. The state and all of its agents, to include any county, municipal, or other local authority, are once again enjoined from seeking to enforce in any manner the Life Act's PCAP termination ban in Georgia. And because Section 4 is stricken, and thus its amendments to the law are gone, Section 11 necessarily fails as well, as a woman does not require a legislatively bestowed exception to pursue a pre-viability termination. And finally, the other law that they wanted to overturn is declared unconstitutional. It too shall not be enforced by the state or any of its agents. Now, how this ruling plays with the Georgia Supreme Court is another matter. Professor Anthony Michael Crease said that it does fail to center legal history and the evolution of common law in its analysis, which is going to be a real missed opportunity and a limitation of its reach on appeal. So we'll see how it does.
Thanks so much, AG. And from the Associated Press, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell signaled Monday that more interest rate cuts are in the pipeline, but suggested they would occur at a measured pace intended to support a still healthy economy. His comments at a conference at the National Association for Business Economics in Nashville, Tennessee, well, it disappointed the hopes of many investors that the Fed would implement another steep half-point reduction in its key rate before the end of the year. The Fed cut its rate by a larger than usual half-point earlier this month as it's moved past its inflation fight and pivoted towards supporting the job market. The broad S&P 500 stock index initially fell 0.6% after his remarks, but it recovered afterwards to close at about 0.4% higher. So there's a swing up. Quote, we're looking at it as a process that will play out over some time. That's what Powell said during a question and answer session, referring to the Fed's interest rate reductions. He went on to say, not something that we need to go fast on. It depends on data, the speed at which we actually go. Now, economics are already pointing to Friday's job report as a key piece of data that could alter the Fed's policy path. If the unemployment rate rises noticeably or hiring stumbles, officials could consider a sharper rate cut later this year. At their last meeting, September 18th, Fed officials reduced their rate to 4.8% from two-decade high of 5.3% and penciled in 2 more quarter-point rate cuts in November and December. On Monday, Powell said that remains the most likely outcome. Quote, if the economy performs as expected, that would mean 2 more cuts this year, both by 1/4 point. That's what Powell said. In prepared remarks, he also said the U.S. economy and hiring are largely healthy and emphasized that the Fed is, quote, recalibrating its key interest rate as opposed to cutting rapidly as it would in an emergency. He also said the rate is headed, quote, to a more neutral stance, a level that doesn't stimulate or hold back the economy. Fed officials have pegged the so-called neutral rate at about 3%, and significantly below its current level. Powell emphasized that the Fed's current goal is to support a largely healthy economy and job market rather than rescue a struggling economy or prevent a recession. Quote, overall, the economy is in solid shape. That's what Powell said in written remarks. He said, we intend to use our tools to keep it there. Inflation, according to Fed's preferred measure, fell to just 2.2% in August. The government reported that on Friday. Core inflation, which excludes the volatile food and energy categories and typically provides a better read on underlying price trends, that trickled up slightly to 2.7%. The unemployment rate, meanwhile, trickled down last month to 4.2% from 4.3%, but it's still nearly a full percentage point higher than the half-century low of 3.4% it reached last year, still under the same administration, by the way. Hiring has slowed in an average of just 116,000 jobs a month in the past 3 months, and half its pace a year ago. Over time, the Fed's rate reductions should reduce borrowing costs for consumers and businesses, including lower rates for mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards. So obviously, we're going to keep you up to date on what's going on with that and how and when it happens.
Yes, indeed. I don't think we'll have another rate cut before the election, though. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, with that piece that you read from The Guardian, Dana, people in a blind taste test preferred Kamala Harris's policy on economics over Donald Trump's. And by the way, the one thing that they did prefer by Donald Trump, the fact that he would cut taxes on Social Security. He wants to gut Social Security and privatize it.
Exactly.
So it doesn't fucking matter if he's going to cut taxes on it or not, because it'll be gone and insolvent. And that's according to Project 2025 and his own words coming out of his own gross mouth. All right, everybody, we have some good news to get to, but we have to take a quick break first. So stick around. We'll be right back.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Who likes good news? Everyone? Then good news, everyone.
And if you have any good news, confessions, corrections, especially pronunciation corrections, you can send them to us. If you want to play What the Mutt, Find the Cat, Opine on the Bovine, What the Shell, What the hell is in your shell? What's the model of your axolotl? Any animal guessing game.
What the hell is in your shell?
Any animal guessing game. Really, it's just a ploy to get you to send your pod pets in.
That's
and
it.
if you can't pay pod pet tax, that's cool. Send an adoptable pet in your area. And you don't really even have to attach an animal photo. You can also pay baby photo tax. I've decided if you want to send in some good news, attach your baby photo, and that's good. That's good enough for us as well. Also, if you have any shout outs that you want to send, whether it's to a spouse, a partner, a loved one, a small business in your area that could use a boost, or your small business, and we want to know what you're making and creating. And self shout outs are also amazing. Tell us what you love about you, because we want to hear it and we want to celebrate you too. And then we have shout outs to government programs that have helped you or a loved one, whether it's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Affordable Care Act, WIC, SNAP, Section 8, great VA healthcare you might get at your local VA clinic. We want to hear about all of it, and including and especially student debt relief. Send those stories to us. I send them directly to the White House. I know they read them and they enjoy them. And you can send all of it into us at dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. All right. Also, reminder, you can see the pod pics if you become a patron. And the good news pics are at the bottom of the show notes for each Patreon episode. That's just one of the perks of subscribing. You also get these episodes ad-free. You get them early. You get VIP meet and greet invites, pre-sale tickets to live events. You get the bonus weekly wrap up that's not edited, which I don't know, it might not be the best thing because we don't really edit it, but you get that whether you want it or not. And just all sorts of other cool perks. You can sign up at patreon.com/Mueller, she wrote. All right. From Lauren, pronouns she and her. Hi, AG and DG. I'm from Western North Carolina. I have two pieces of good news. Oh, Lauren, sending out love to you. The first is that my family survived Hurricane Helene more or less in one piece. It's hard to describe how devastating it is, watching pictures and videos of the destruction trickling out over social media over the weekend, not knowing whether my parents and friends were alive because the power, water, and telecom infrastructure catastrophically failed Friday morning. I'm incredibly grateful that they're all okay, especially knowing that so many others were not so fortunate and lost everything, including their lives. My second piece of good news is that there's been an incredible outpouring of love and support from people across the country who want to help the people of Western North Carolina. Our local NPR affiliate, Blue Ridge Public Radio, has compiled a list of organizations on the ground that are accepting donations. Go to bpr.org and search ways to donate. We're going to have a link for you in the show notes. I also think it's important to note this disaster is the direct result of climate change. Absolutely, Lauren. Rising air and water temperatures are increasing the frequency and intensity of hurricanes, resulting in catastrophic damage to areas that are not prepared to handle them. Western North Carolina is 300 miles from the nearest coast and 2,000 feet above sea level.
Wow.
That an entire region this far inland could be taken out by a hurricane like this should scare the hell out of everyone. It is critically important to get out the vote for candidates who understand the threat of climate change and will act to address it. Our lives depend on it. Thank you for everything you do. Enclosed is a picture of me standing outside my grandparents' house in Haywood County, North Carolina. I think I was about 4, and I was rocking the freshest fashions of the late 80s. And yes, I cut my own bangs. I like to think I look like baby Joan Jett. Oh,
You definitely do. That is a rockin' self-made mullet you got there.
that is a really badass haircut, I have to say. And Lauren, thank you. And I'm so glad you and your family are okay. I'm sending all my love to everybody in Western North Carolina and everybody in the southern states that has been impacted by this devastating storm.
Absolutely. This one's from Roberta. It's a short one, pronouns she and her. A shout out to an organization doing good work amidst tragedy. It's called Beloved Asheville. They're bringing food and water and supplies to people who have lost much, sometimes everything, in Hurricane Helene. So that's Beloved Asheville, and I'm sure people can look that up and see if it's something you'd like to participate in. Thank you for that submission. This next one's from MSW Media Junkie, pronouns she, her. To 2 of the most beautiful ladies inside and out I have ever known. AG, we met at one of your MSW meet and greets in San Diego in the early days. I've never missed any one of your podcasts in almost 8 years. I'm amazed, but not surprised at how far you've come. Thank you for all that you do to save our democracy. Now to my good news. My sister was diagnosed with breast cancer about 1.5 years ago and is now in remission.
Yay.
Her attitude is amazing. She walks at least 5 miles every day, rain or shine. She's from the Pacific Northwest, so there's more rain than shine, but I digress. She has never been particularly active in politics, but she has become so, maybe because of her diagnosis. At any rate, she got the great idea to spread the word about voting and democracy on one of her many, many walks. She collected a bunch of rocks, gathered a few friends, and painted these wonderful inspirations, then spread them all around town on her walk. I just had to share. This is brilliant.
I love this. You know what? Sometimes when I'm on my walk every morning, I'll see a rock like this, a little blue, vote blue, BLM, Dems love rock. And I'm just like, this is a trend. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to Roberta too, for shouting out Beloved Asheville. All right. Next up from Anonymous, no pronouns. There's a new Instagram account called Cats on a Couch that is pictures of cats on couches and with the self-described goal of getting more followers than JD Vance. It's cats, laughing, and politics. So obviously I thought of you. All right. They have 82,000 followers. Everybody go follow Cats on a Couch on Instagram.
Fantastic. Look at that little kitten. That's my favorite so far.
The little one stand there. Meow.
Yep.
All right. And from Cheryl, hi, AG and DG. My passport expired during the pandemic. I'd been meaning to renew, but just never got around to it. When the State Department announced the online renewal option, I jumped at the chance. The site said it would take a minimum of 40 days to process. No big deal, as the only travel we have planned was from Seattle to Spokane, and that's hardly foreign travel. But I completed my application on September 21st. Today is the 28th, and guess what arrived in the mail? Well done, Department of State.
Nice.
Wow. 7 days to get your passport renewed by mail. And a reminder, you don't have to submit court orders or birth certificates or submit to any medical shit to choose the gender you want to choose or the X gender marker on the passport.
That's fantastic.
And it also counts for your My ID thing. You know how they're doing this thing by your passport counts toward that. So I think everybody get your passport. My pod pet tax is 4-month-old Molly. You won't have any trouble identifying her breed. Actually, we probably will, Cheryl. We're not that good. She's a rescue as a friend, worked with a person who had 5 days to rehome her. She was going to a shelter. Another doggo wasn't in our retirement plans, but the dog has a way of finding you. She's very sweet when she isn't being a total menace. Look at this beautiful baby, who I'm assuming is a golden.
Oh, it's a cutie.
Such adorable baby. Cheryl, thank you for overestimating our dog breed guessing skills. So appreciate it.
Seriously. All right. This one's from Kristen, pronouns she and her. Hello, ladies of the legumes. Here's a quick good news and self and my lab shout out, plus a VA good news story, plus poster and paper title. Okay. Yesterday was our VA research day at the VA here in Aurora, Colorado. By the way, no Venezuela gangs or Hell's Angels. Learning about all the other research going on at the VA was fascinating, but I was extra interested in the day's focus on research in women's health and gender disparities. Women are the fastest growing veteran population, so this research is invaluable. Personally, I work in autoimmune disease research, which disproportionately affects women and women of color. Here's a picture of our poster titled, quote, "Pervasive sharing of causal genetic risk factors contributes to clinical and molecular overlap between Sjogren's disease. Sjogren's disease, which is SJD, and systemic lupus erythematosus. Now, the only reason I even pronounced that correctly is because they were nice enough to give me a phonetic spelling and pronunciation there. Here's my pod pet tax of the one and only blind St. Bernard Beto and his Great Dane brother Clyde sunbathing and peeing together. Don't cross the streams. Dr. Egon Spengler.
Don't cross the streams.
Oh,
that would be incredibly bad. What did it say? Total protonic reversal.
Yes.
Look at
cuties.
Oh my God, they are peeing. They're going to cross the streams. Oh my God. Adorable. Thank you so much. Oh, what a cool thing. The VA Research Day is really, really incredible. And that's amazing work that you're doing, Kristen. So thank you. And thank you for sharing your poster there. All right. This is from First Year Teachers Rock. Pronouns she and her. Hello, Beans Queens. This is a self shout out. I normally try to avoid the spotlight, but can make an exception this one time because I hope elementary school principals in Michigan are listening. Every year I reach out to principals in a random county in Michigan. I never do the same county twice, and I've done this for 15 years. I ask them to nominate any and all first-year teachers that are in their school. I have a coworker literally pull a name from a hat, and then I buy school supplies for the winning teacher. The part I love is giving the teachers homework and telling them to give me a list of what would help you be a successful teacher. I've gotten requests from everything from first aid kits and giant beanbag chairs to the typical crayons and pencils. During COVID, I provided a huge amount of cleaning supplies, including a see-through mask for the teacher, because they had a deaf student who needed to be able to read lips. The part I love more is shopping. I'm not with an organization, so this comes out of my own money. I work a second job in the summer, and whatever I earn becomes the shopping budget. Man, that's incredible. Anyway, when I reach out to principals, typically in mid-July, I'm frustrated by the lack of response. One year, I only heard back from 2 out of 35. So if you could please let your listeners know, and I'm especially hoping for the Michigan principals to hear, that if they get an email in the next few years asking for nominations, please don't be scared to respond to it. I'm not a spam prince from Timbuktu asking for money. I'm a normal person wanting to spend money. I personally deliver the supplies, and while the odds are mathematically higher that I will pick a lower peninsula county, I have made multiple trips to the Upper Peninsula, including delivering to Mackinac Island. Only 68 more counties to go. Here's my picture of this year's haul that included over 100 books. None of the 15 backpacks went unfilled.
Amazing.
Wow. This is so cool that you do this, anonymous person.
It is. We got good people.
I love it. Good self shout out. So you hearing us, Michigan principals? Respond to that email when you get it. Because it's just free supplies for your coolest first year teacher. Well, not coolest, just the one that comes out of the hat, right? Out of all their first year teachers. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for your submissions. Please send us all your good news at dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. I just want to do a little in memoriam to Chris Christopherson, one of the coolest people on the planet who left us this week.
Yeah.
Just devastating. The thing that comes into my head was when he had comforted Sinead O'Connor when she was booed during that concert. And
that was a very, very powerful moment.
He was such a wonderful, respectful, patriotic American, and he will be dearly missed. Quite a poet.
And I hate to do, I want to give a shout out to the Broadway community who know and love Gavin Creel. He died at 48 and has sort of rocked the Broadway world. Incredible man, actor, and performer. And definitely there's a lot of people feeling his loss today as well. So.
That's so sad. Anyway, a little in memoriam there at the end of the good news. So thank you for listening. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow. There'll also be a new episode of Clean Up on Aisle 45 tomorrow. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, take care of your family. Vote blue over Q.
And take all that family with you.
And go to vote.org, check your registration status, get your voting information at Vote 411. and vote down ballot all the way. I've been AG.
And I've been DG.
And them's the beans.
Refried beans. I like refried
Beans.